What's up, AfterBuzzers? We're here. We're talking Hanna, episodes 1 and 2, Friends and Forest, but not in that order. Stay tuned for all that and more coming up for you next.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's up, AfterBuzzers? Welcome, welcome. We're here. We're talking Hanna, and I'm your host for this afternoon, Erica Edwards, but I couldn't do it without my co-host, so.
All right, Saran is here without a bathrobe, which is a first, but it's okay.
Oh, wow.
Make it
Okay.
happen.
I wasn't ready. All right, so let's start off. Overall, what are your feelings on this new show?
My overall thoughts were, especially when you compare it to the movie that came out in 2011, which was really done well. And of course, you have some of the staff there on this project as well. You have like almost a retelling, but it's not told in the same way. It's not as graphic and detailed. I feel that one thing that threw me off in the show were the different accents that came up. I felt like the accents, some people had accents, some people didn't have accents. Why are we in Europe? Where are we exactly? What's really going on? So in the original movie, it was a very clear-cut concept. Of course, the writer was finished, and we had this feeling of this post-Cold War Hanna that existed. With this story, the elements aren't always there, but it was very fun. It was very compelling. It was a good retelling, not great, but it was good. And I'm enjoying the ride, and I'm going to let it happen. And suspension of disbelief, a lot of things will come up, which I'm sure we're going to discuss in Forest and in Friends in that order, or whatever order you give us. But I just I'm here. I'm here right now, so I'm in it. I like it more than I dislike it, and that's a good thing.
Okay, I have not seen the movie, so I don't have anything to compare it to in that respects. But I did really enjoy it, and actually, I am a true blue fan of the TV show The Killing, which the same two leading actors were in that. So I'm loving to see them kind of on opposite sides because they were partners in The Killing. So I'm liking that. Like to me, as someone coming to it fresh, I'm kind of like with you, like, where are we? What's going on? Are they, it reminded me of like Firestarter. Like, oh, okay, were they being tested? Why are they,
Firestarter, of course, being the Drew Barrymore 80s movie, which was the precursor to every mutant movie ever made.
Exactly. I was like, is she a mutant? What's going on? So overall, I liked it. But again, I just laughed because some of the accents I personally thought were horrible. Some of them were on point, and some of them I was like,
it almost felt like some of these. Now I'm going to assume that a lot of the actors were actually taken from their native lands. Why are you faking an accent from a place that you're from?
Right. Or, I wasn't sure. Like, honestly, we don't, until later on, I guess we realized they're in Poland. But we don't know in the beginning. So, we
kind of figure that out as it goes on. And here's the thing. Since you don't have the backdrop from the original movie, I'm telling you from someone who's watched the original movie many times, the fact that we're both coming off equally confused about things tells you a lot. You had no reference for what's supposed to be going on, and I had all the reference for what's supposed to be going on, and we still had kind of the same conflicts with the show. But it is fun. It is a fun show.
It's fun, and I like the fact that they couple the action with her, like, sort of coming-of-age teenager type stuff. So that part actually is kind of fun in a sense. All right, so we open it up with him, with Eric, stealing his baby from what I thought originally was a hospital, but clearly they don't shoot you when you leave the hospital.
No, you'd be surprised. Some people, when you don't pay that bill.
Exactly. Thank you. Hospitals in the hood. But outside of that, what were your thoughts about the opening scene? And to me, I found it interesting that he was kind of, it seemed like it was almost easy for him to do it. And when I realized it wasn't a real hospital, I was like, well, their security wasn't all of that. But what were your thoughts?
So we're facing a normal espionage situation. This is a person who's clearly trained, someone who's, it takes a certain amount of training to go in with such confidence and be able to do the things that he's doing. We kind of get that off the bat. let's assume the movie did not happen and I'm watching it as is. Or we're watching guy goes and takes a baby. I don't know why he specifically chose that baby. I also didn't know why a baby would stay that quiet. There were a lot of things going on through my mind as I was watching it, through the scenes. Why is he not even better trained? This is supposed to be a super trained person, right? So why is he not even better trained? Why are they trying to kill him? Of course, these are things that are supposed to unfold as the storyline goes off, but I found myself not even wanting to know. And that was the main problem. When these things are placed, I should want to know why, but it just seemed I was more focused on why the baby wasn't crying at all. That seemed to be the main point, because they kept cutting back to this baby. I'm like, why is the baby not crying? This baby should be just wailing her eyes out.
True. Very, very true. And then, so he escapes. Because at first, I think, I knew he was stealing the baby, but I didn't realize, I think, initially for me, that he was an operative. So it wasn't until I was like, oh, okay, he's fighting them decently well. He came equipped with a knife.
Exactly. It wasn't amazingly well. It was, decent within,
right.
Within reason.
Decent. And they didn't seem too aggressive. I didn't really think I thought they were regular security until they started shooting. I was like, oh, these people are like somebody
and even then,
special.
When they started shooting at someone holding a baby, I was like, well, I don't think that's normal standard operating procedure.
Exactly.
And they were missing, but they were missing in a range that you shouldn't be missing. I mean, there was just a lot of things where there's a thing of suspension of disbelief. This was so much disbelief because you're talking about trained people versus trained people. Even if you're not greatly trained, you're still trained.
True. Very true. Very true. So, so this is our first sighting of Hannah's mother. She's at the vehicle when he brings, their baby, and then they go to the hotel. So we don't really get too much of her, because basically they're sort of on the run, and then they're sort of. What did you think about that sprint across the open way in the forest?
The stupid sprint. See, this is what I mean. Look, and I know what their intent was to build this suspense, but it was unsuspenseful because it just seemed out of place. There could have been so much more. For example, if this is it looks like a couple who's stealing a baby, or it's Hannah's actual mother, right? So that's the two options that we have. These are the real parents, or they're just a couple. Neither one was the mother emotionally or empathetically attached to this baby in a way where I felt bad for the mother dying. It was
Although
shocking.
I will say this, though. She did take an unusually long amount of time putting that child in the child seat. Because I was like, she's been there all day and she knows people are coming. And it took her a lot of, I was like, well, maybe.
Like she had nenever used a child seat before.
At first, I was like, well, maybe she's sacrificing herself and going to be like, go on. Because she clearly took too long to get it together, I thought. But I think you do have a point. Going in, there's so much action off the top. You don't really have any feelings you don't really feel for the characters.
Exactly.
As of yet.
It's action. It's not, you're not feeling that emotional connection you should to a baby. Like at any given time, there should be a reason why you're feeling for this baby. Even then, even when they were shooting, I was like, if they shot the baby, I don't know if I would feel that bad, Like I want to. And if they had showed the mom maybe embracing and not letting go of this baby and just like, oh, you're my prize, you're my daughter, I love you, or something. Give me something.
Right. And she was just more like, well, in case we're in a car accident, we want you to be safe.
Yeah.
So then there's that point where they're in the car and they're kind of off the road, but there's helicopters and they're like, okay, there's 100 miles of forest and we could just make it to the forest, which honestly was giving me, those Game of Thrones battle fans, but it's Sunday. I'm just in that mood. But okay, so he has to make it across across this pathway, and there's helicopters if we can make it. So I'm not clear why he thought he could make it in this hoopty car.
But he does kind of make it. And on top of that, how's that hoopty car standing up? See, once again, it gives me, it's the problem of the concept of, if you're showing this as reality, then give me realistic expectations of what's going to happen. You're saying this is so real. This is gritty and nitty. It didn't do one or the other. It could be totally just made up where you're like okay with everything going on, or it could be really realistic.
Right.
And it did neither super successfully to me.
I agree.
And especially with they go through the woods, nothing the car's just going through. It's an Audi. It's a sports car at that, traveling in the woods, doing just fine. I mean, I've had a Jeep Wrangler get stuck in the woods, right? So you're going through the woods, and there's this clearing for no reason, and there's a helicopter with a turn with shooting at them. Now, I don't know if you know anything about military upgraded weapons, but they should have blown them out. Those bullets are 50 caliber at the least, at the minimal. Right. That's enough to blow your trunk off. and it's just hitting and sometimes it's hitting the car and nothing's really happening.
And I was surprised that it was hitting the car, but no one in the car was shot. Because I was like, okay, well, they're hitting the car a lot. She's going to get shot.
A couple times.
Right. I was like, I know, the mother, we don't see the mother. So later in the series or whatever. So I was like, maybe she's going to get shot. So she doesn't get shot. She dies in a car accident.
As they crash into the tree.
As they crash into the tree.
Horrible way to go.
Yeah, that looked painful. And so then we cut to...
Should have buckled herself up. Maybe she sat in the car seat.
Exactly. That's all I'm
Maybe
thinking.
she sat in the car seat.
You know what? It's funny that you mentioned that because I exactly thought that. I was like, well, I guess she didn't put her seatbelt on.
She didn't.
And that was, that was her sacrifice. We were supposed to feel for her and her
And we
baby
didn't.
daughter at that point. And we still were kind of like, what's going on? So then we jumped to Hanna at about 15 or 16, shooting a deer and then sort of cleaning it or whatever you do when you're hunting. And then we go through these like... episode sort of or a menage of her like training and kind of seeing what her life has been like in the woods.
It's interesting you said 15 or 16, and because I was questioning that, because according to the show it seems like she would be 13. It started in 2003 and we know we're in 2019, so it seems like she would be 13 years old, right?
Well, I only said 15 or 16 because of what happened in episode 2. I honestly, at the time, originally I thought she was 13 until in episode 2 and later on, where it's like she's with a boy and stuff. I'm like, well, hopefully she's not 13 getting felt up.
Yeah, like she's 16. Is she 16? Because it's like 2003 till now, she's 16. But then she comes off like she looks a little younger, especially in comparison to that boy. I was feeling the same thing. I was like, that boy's smoking.
I was like creeped out a little bit. So then
she came off younger, and then it's like, okay, now we're saying she's 16. It is 2019, even though we're not being shown a 2019 world.
Exactly. And then what I also found... and to be honest, I'm still not clear. Are we in 2019? I'm not even clear on that.
Well, she's 16. That's what we're going with, right? I'm hoping.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're saying that. And so, because initially when they show her training and stuff, and he's kind of giving her all these pointers, like if we get separated or if we're in the world, all these things. And then he starts talking about Jaws and The Godfather. So that's when I was like confused, like, all right. So clearly he doesn't leave the woods either because, if she's referencing Jaws, The Godfather, and I forgot one other movie he gave her. And these, these songs clearly like from the 80s and maybe 90s, I guess. So what did you feel about her whole training and
see? And this is where the movie comes in a back play, right? So David Farr, who was worked on the original screenplay after the fact, came in and he did the editing, and of course is the one who was able to get it produced. In 2011, we see the world of Hanna and why she's being trained to kill Marissa.
Right.
Who we find out later, and that's something I'm sure you'll get into. But the concept is she's training for that. We would know that in the movie. In this, they didn't do a good job of letting us know that this operative is training this daughter of his to be this ultimate super soldier for this reason. So it's like she's just training for no reason, and she's learning how to mimic the real world.
True. Although I agree with her, like when she's, they show the scene between her and her father, and they show all these scenes of her training, and then she asks him, she's starting to ask and wonder about the outside world, and he's like, well, I might not be here, one day. He makes it seem as if they're going to stay there forever.
Well, she asks him, are we going to be here forever? He says yes.
Yes, but then that's the point. She's like, well, why are you training me? That's the point where you realize, no, he's training her for another purpose.
See, and in the original movie, that's made clear from the get-go. There is no assumption. He's only training her for her to be old enough to go kill Marissa. And so you have that purpose in the backdrop where that makes you understand it. But in this one, if you're going to just stay in the woods forever and it's a mistake that you even get out, then why is he training her?
Right,
because he might not always be there.
And training her so hard.
What's the purpose?
Exactly. So at that point, you realize, oh, okay, he's training her for something other than her own safety, as he's telling her. So now what's interesting is, as every teenager does, she kind of wants to get out of the field. And honestly, I wouldn't have minded a few, clips of her training as a 3-year-old or something. That would have been cute and adorable and really endeared her more to me. I'm not going to lie.
Because we jump.
Right, we jump from her being a baby to like however old she is, 13 through 16.
We're going 16. We're going with 16, but she looks younger in a way.
Right. And because I feel like they're trying to play it on both sides. Like when it comes to dating and sexuality and her interaction with Sophie, she does appear to be 16, but then all the other scenes, it's like this 13-year-old combative soldier.
Well, and she gets her period for the first time during one of these, and she doesn't know what happened, and she looks at it, and she touches it, and she tastes it, and she doesn't know what's happening to her body. And that's just something where, I mean, I understand people develop later, but it's just not... It was just a little off. It was just a little off. They try to make it seem like something we would all feel close to this character, but it actually distanced me. The only reason I actually even like is because I like the character. I just like her. There's something likable about her as a person.
Right.
That's the only thing holding me on that is going against the writing.
Exactly. So, so she goes and she meets the boy Arva's, yeah. Arva. And so
the Polish lumber kid.
Yeah, the Polish lumber kid. Who's smoking. And I don't know, part of me was like later when they arrest him, I was like, was he just doing lumber? Like, what was he really doing? But what was so cool, personally, shout out to perfect product placement, because I am a true fan of both Snickers and Twix, but she went with the Snickers, so they share candy, and she gets a little aggressive with him. And then when she comes back, her father knows that she's been away. Now that, to me, is the first time when she comes back that you realize that she has some sort of super abilities, because up until this point, she's been training hard, and you've been training for 16 years. I would expect you to know how to fight by that time and shoot and everything else. But when he says, you can always hear me, that's when you realize that she has some sort of extrasensory hearing or some sort of super dynamic.
Actually, it's interesting. I didn't get that at all. I was just like, you can always hear me because you're within the realm of the forest, because I've marked everything within a specific
Really? I thought
way,
it meant that she had special hearing.
Trees are marked with the red, and she's not supposed to go beyond that that part.
That's true, but I really did think, I was like, wow, she has special hearing, because why is he so sure she got always hear? I'm glad
that someone got, that's great.
So that was one thing. Now, what was interesting, I thought, which sort of, again, didn't add to the empathy of the characters, was when she was lying to him, he was quick to slap her. I was like, dang, Dad, like, pull back. And because he was like, he hit her. And I was like, wow. And then I don't think he ever really was like, sorry. He was like, you're lying. And, she eventually tells him the truth. But I don't know. I didn't like that.
Here, really quick on the touch of him hitting her, it didn't seem sincere, right? It wasn't hard enough for it to cause her pain. She's training how to fight all the time. I'm sure she's been hit harder just in their spar.
Yeah,
it just felt.
But your dad's slapping you in the face.
Yeah, but I felt like he could have done it in such a way where I feel like, okay, so with my parents, right? There are times where I would rather have gotten hit than the guilt trip that they put me on, and that's what I felt like would have been a much more powerful part, is if he guilt tripped her by saying, humans are not to be trusted. You aren't one of them. You need to lie, like, never lie to me. I am your only family, and just guilted her into telling the truth. She lied so easily for the first time that she's ever done it. She had no remorse for what she'd done, and she went against her training so quickly. There was just no build up to why she would have done so.
Yes, and what's interesting, I think, about this whole thing is, and I guess this is a typical father. Like, he trained her for all these circumstances, but he never contemplated, I guess, her kind of becoming a teenager and sexuality, interested in boys and wanting to have friends. And he just seemed like he never thought of that.
Yeah, it's just interesting. But one thing that we always think of here is all of you at home. We appreciate each and every one of you for being as much a part of our panel as we are, and for making us the ESPN of TV talk. Now, within this panel of support and group, we do need your help. We need you to share, subscribe, and tell your friends about all our after shows. We have a variety of after shows on all your favorite TV shows, from sci-fi, mystery to more. And we have a bunch of different talk shows and things of that nature right here on the AfterBuzz Network. So spread the word and share the love. And we read your comments all below. And if you're on iTunes, here's the thing. We would love for you to give us that 5-star rating that I feel like we deserve. Comment. Let us know, especially when you comment. It boosts us to the top. And we'd love to share more ideas and more talk with each and every one of you. So tell your friends and keep enjoying our shows. Thank you so much.
All right. So just to wrap up episode 1, Arvo takes her to the satellite dish, and he explains to her what text messages are, which is great, because I don't know if she even knows what cell phones are. And then that's when they get caught. And she runs off into the forest, and that kind of is what brings this government agency. I'm not sure who Marissa works for. I'm not sure what agency she's affiliated with, but she kind of finds out about it immediately. And kind of that's how we end episode 1 and sort of start off episode 2.
You get this feeling that it's some CIA operative type feel. It's even above, possibly. It's some mixture of CIA, NSA, and any of the 17 clandestine operations that we have from the United States. Because she has an American accent, you're assuming she's working for the American government.
You assume so, although it appears she's in France. It's a little...
It's hazy.
Exactly. The whole thing with the accents, I agree, is somewhat confusing. So then when we start off episode 2, Friends, I love Sophie. I don't know. I mean, I love Sophie and Jake and their whole family, and they're going to Morocco to kind of bond, but they all still hate each other. So that part is fun. And then we see Hanna and this was interesting too. Hanna was so quick to save her. Did she turn herself in, do you think, to save her father or to get into their clutches so she can murder Marissa?
I think here's the thing, and that's the storyline that in the original movie, she's trained specifically. She's seen Marissa's face a million times, and she's willing to kill. She's training to kill Marissa, the murderer of her mother.
Right.
And in this episode, Marissa's brought up as an afterthought, like, well, this is the person who killed your mom, and she looks at her one time and is like, yes, we must kill her. And that's basically it. So for her to sacrifice herself to go into this training facility to kill Marissa, which is very much similar to the movie, but once again, it's almost like a telephone version where it's been handed down, is also not as contrite as I would want it to be. Sophie also exists in the original movie, and Sophie and her family are, I think, camping in Morocco, or they're going camping, the thing, and she stows away with them and she gets found. And it's a very similar kinship she finds with Sophie as in the first one. Sophie in the first one was the sexual awakening because Sophie's the person she actually goes in for the kiss and all that stuff happens. So it's just an interesting dynamic, and Sophie is very lovable. She's a lovable character in this show.
Yes, and as far as the kissing and the sexuality, Sophie does seem like she's interested in Hanna and more than just a friend.
Yes.
So it's interesting because we see Sophie flirting and kind of very sexually aware with boys, but then she meets Hanna and it's all about Hanna. So that whole dynamic, I think, is actually adds a little bit of depth to the show for me. And to see Hanna, to me, I always find in episode 1 and episode 2, her interaction with people closer to her own age kind of brings some more of a third dimension to her.
It gives a little more depth.
Right, because she's kind of flat, to me, a little bit flat. I mean, the killing and the action is great, but you don't really feel for her. You don't start to feel for her until you see her interacting with other kids and you realize, okay, she has known no one like her whole life. And I almost expected her to be even more like an animal than she was.
A little more.
But she acclimated quick. She kind of, especially seeing her hang out with Sophie, it was fast, but it was cute. So I really like that.
Do bring that up in episode 1 where she's eating the Snickers and Aros is like, you eat like an animal. Like,
right, and she doesn't know enough to even be insulted. She's like, whatever, thanks for the Snickers.
Exactly.
Which I thought
she should be more like, this Snickers is amazing. Like, if I had a Snickers, have you ever seen a little kid when they eat like a candy for the first time? They're like,
Wait, exactly. When I was in basic training, when I got out and I had a Snickers and I thought like I was going to lose my mind.
It was amazing.
When you haven't had sugar in that long, you totally lose it.
Exactly. So
I thought she was going to be totally hyper when she got back, but she was fine. So I was like, wow.
The same way with Sophie, right? I expected more. Hanna should be more excited. You have this girl. You should be asking her, what is this blood that happens once a month? What is, like, she needs to be asking and dwelling into that question. And so that's what my problem is. Like, I don't get enough emotion, and I'm not like an emotional person, but I don't get enough emotion, but I also don't get enough killing. Then you know what? Let's go kill more people, Hanna. Let's do one thing or the other, not kind of meddle in both.
Okay, although I will say that when they brought in the phony Marissa to interview her, that was the best killing ever. Great job, Hanna.
Not to the movie, of course, where that happens. Marissa's smart enough to send in a body double, and of course, Hanna plays this part and then murders because that is what Hanna does best.
Yeah, so that scene.
She was bred to do that, by the way.
Yes,
she was trained, learned to train, but she was bred. That's the whole concept, the super soldier, right?
Okay,
So
well,
she's
I've
bred
only
to
seen
kill.
episode 1 and 2, so I hope you're not telling me something that happens in a later episode.
Like I said, it's based on a movie. It's based on the movie, so it's not surprising.
It's not a spoiler. Okay,
Yeah, it's not a
fair
spoiler.
enough.
Everyone knows.
So yeah, well, I don't know,
Yeah.
but thank you. Okay, so because that is the one thing, because she's a great fighter, but she also kills without emotion.
Yes.
So that is the part that really comes through. Even though we see her really bonding with Sophie, so she doesn't quite seem like she's a sociopath or whatever, but she certainly kills pretty calmly.
Without remorse.
Without remorse. So she hitches a ride with Sophie and her family, hiding, and so when they get to the part where they're at the train station where they're kind of she's saying goodbye, and then there's another big huge fight scene where she's like killing people, and then Sophie stops her from shooting the guy. What do you think?
I mean, it was one of those moments that were supposed to be extremely touching. Sophie is her humanity, right?
Right.
That's the analogy. Sophie's her humanity. Sophie's the only thing that she comes to love, or whatever it is, has a connection with. Sophie, you could have got everybody killed. Like, don't shoot the guy. Do you understand what's going on here, Sophie? Let's just go back to camping in Morocco.
Exactly. And I was like, Hanna, I know she's your girl, but you just met her, and these people are trying to kill you. So
mark them all.
Send her a text message later.
Exactly.
Now that you know
Now
what
that
those
you know
are,
what it is.
right?
Exactly.
And and take these people out, because you know that they're here to kill you, even if you didn't have time to explain it to her.
Yeah, she doesn't know what's going on. She's kind of. I don't know if you've ever been in a fight, but it's been a situation. I was one time in a fight, and one of my friends stopped me, and the guy who was on the other side punched me in the face, and I was like, "Bruh, like, I'm in a fight here. Like,
Right.
Exactly. I understand you're trying to help, but you actually hurt. That's how basketball goes."
Exactly.
So yeah, it was very similar of a situation. It could have been at least it didn't end up for the worse.
Yes, exactly. So, Hanna doesn't shoot the guy, but, we kind of see this moment between her and Sophie before she gets away. And it's touching, but it's, like you said, Sophie is clearly her humanity. But right now, she's on a mission. So
Yeah.
she needs to stay focused.
It is. And then we also get the part where she basically gets the files she's going to look at later. We're all interested in knowing what the files are. Of course, since it's a show, it's going to be a lot more in depth than what the movie is, or it should be.
Right.
We also get a touch of, which was interesting, is Marissa has some files.
Exactly.
And I was like, okay, let's see what these files are. Because Marissa has like a double life, right? So Marissa goes in, and then she has these files hidden. And then she's, I want to know if they're the same files.
Exactly. And then we also know that Hanna was tested. And so, she had this DNA testing, and we still don't really get a grasp of what those tests actually, show. I mean, it's so miraculous and so much, so extraordinary, but we don't really know what they are.
Yeah.
So they kind of leave us hanging on that. And so to me, from someone who didn't see the movie, I'm still kind of like, I know we're chasing, but why? And I kind of need the why. I'm starting to feel a little bit more for the characters. I'm feeling a little bit more for Eric, and, starting to hate Marissa, the villain. But for me, I want a little bit more backstory. So hopefully we'll get it in episodes 3 and 4. All right, you guys. Well, let's move on to our special segment.
Let's do that.
All right, so the special segment is going to be for today anyway. It's going to be the scene out of each of these episodes, or whichever scene you choose, that you feel touched you the most or related to you most in your life.
Well, mine was, okay, so we were on the scene where Hanna was running, and every time she came back in the backpack, the dad put a bigger rock, like a rock in the bag, and it just added up. First of all, I was like, that's an amazing training for him. But secondly, I was like, that's something my dad would do when I'm like, it just reminded me of doing chores. Like, that's what it reminded me of. Like, I had to do chores when I was growing up all the time. And it was like, there's more and more and more chores. It never ends. And it's like, why are we doing this? Let's just get someone else. Like, it just felt that. I got that vibe. It was very cool.
Well, for me, kind of the scene that I mentioned earlier. Years ago, I did go to basic training for the Army, and when you're in basic, you can't have candy, you can't have anything. And I do remember pointedly, like right when we got out, and we were going to go to AIT, we could finally get I remember I got a Coke and a Snickers, and it was amazing. I actually got sick because I hadn't had sugar in like 8 weeks, but it was nice to kind of get that touch of the real world after being in training for so long. So I think that I really enjoy the training scenes. I think that they're kind of fun. The whole female child assassin thing is really great. So I really enjoy that. So that was the scene that touched me most. Okay, so we'll do some news and gossip right quick. All right, so the biggest news that I have for you guys is that if you're enjoying this show as much as we are, well, hey, Amazon has agreed to do a season 2. So there will be back next year for even
Hannah already
more.
got a season 2?
Yes, Hanna has a season 2.
Interesting. That's interesting to know.
Exactly. So we don't know what we'll get to see in these 8 episodes. I don't know because I haven't seen them all yet. But so she'll be back next year, and hopefully we will be too. So
that just means to me that it's going to get a lot better as the season goes on. Because if it was up to me, season 1, episode 1 and 2, I don't see how it can go beyond the movie. But if they get to episode 8 and there's a lot more, it could become the next Bourne type.
Exactly. And I loved Bourne.
Yeah, of course.
I love that series. And there was another one with there was a few of those series that I like. But sometimes
the Mark Wahlberg one, please tell me not that one.
No.
Oh, okay, good. We can still be friends.
Salt, I think.
With Angelina
Jolie. That's the one.
It has all these tones.
Yeah, it had that tone. Actually, I did not particularly like Salt, but I love the Bourne series. All right, you guys. So that's it for now. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I am your host, Erica Edwards. You can follow me on all of my social media at Erica, Erika, D as in door, Edwards.
Yeah, and I am Tehran, literally at I am Tehran all across the board. That's IAMTEHRAN. And you can find me on a slew of AfterBuzz after shows right here on this network. So please check me out and let your friends know to let their friends know.
Please do.
And we will catch you next week.
All right, you guys. Ciao for now.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.